Cindy, lovely to meet you in person.
Lovely to meet you in person as well, Pima.
I was wondering if you'd tell me a bit how the startup scene's going for women in New York. I know that you're sort of the heart and life of that, and you might be able to give us some feedback about what's happening. I know it's sort of booming in New York at the moment.
Well, obviously I'm biased because I'm based in New York, but I have to say, I mean, the tech startup scene in New York is absolutely booming, and B, it is particularly booming in terms of the number of female startup founders and entrepreneurs who are getting businesses off the ground there. And I think that's fantastic, both because obviously for all of us as women entrepreneurs, it's terrific to have the solidarity and the camaraderie of a lot of us doing the same thing. But I also think that's brilliant for the New York tech scene because it means that there is true diversity and creativity and innovation coming in from different perspectives in a way that the historically male-dominated tech startup scene hasn't seen, and I think that can only be good for innovation and for the New York tech scene generally.
Fabulous, fabulous. And I was wondering if you'd share a little bit about your personal journey trying to get funding for your startups. I know you've got the 2 startups, If We Ran the World and Make Love Not Porn. Could you give us some feedback about what's happening with the funding piece there?
So an area that I particularly like to focus in on in terms of how I help other women entrepreneurs is the whole area of money and funding. And I like to do that because I have to say to women regularly, we don't get taken seriously until we get taken seriously financially. So A, it's absolutely fine to focus in on money, finding it, making it, and B, it's enormously important that female tech entrepreneurs go after funding with the same ferocity and single-mindedness as men do. Now, that being said, I represent the double whammy of unfundability. I'm female and I'm older. And so I won't pretend it's not extremely difficult to find funding for female startup founders. It took me 3 years to get If We Ran the World funded. It's taken me a year to get Make Love Not Porn.tv funded. And so I'm very conflicted in this area. On the one hand, I would love to see female tech founders raise the same kinds of rounds of funding that male-founded tech startups are. I would love to see female tech founders make huge exits. I would love to see a female tech billionaire topple Mark and Steve and Larry and Sergey from the top of the Vanity Fair new establishment list. But on the other hand, the very realistic advice that I now always give to women entrepreneurs is, actually, it can be so difficult to find funding, if at all possible, bootstrap your idea, get it out there, get it out there as minimum viable product, get it into the marketplace, get it gaining traction. Okay. A, you will find it a great deal easier to get funding when you have something out there with proof of concept. Yes. And B, if you have designed your startup around a business model designed to generate revenue from day one, then with any luck you won't need funding. And actually, that is much more the desirable scenario to be in. Mm. So as I say, on the one hand, I would love to see women gaining much more ground because the tech funding bubble is completely passing us by, as witness all of the media stories that talk about the tech bubble and the ridiculous amounts of funding being thrown at startups, all of which, all the examples cited are always male founders, yes. Universally. Yes. But on the other hand, what that actually means is that it's a lot more realistic for female tech startup founders to actually find a way to bootstrap and get out there, and with any luck find a different way to make your startup viable and to pay for itself.
So what I'm hearing is really don't allow anything to hold you back. Do whatever you can to get your idea and startup tangible and earning revenue.
Absolutely. I mean, the only person who can make things happen for you is you. And because it's a fact of life that female entrepreneurs face many more obstacles than men, the playing field is not level, actually know that and just grit your teeth and make your startup happen off your own resources, your own initiative and your own creativity as much as you possibly can.
You're a fabulous speaker, Cindy. You've got a fan in me. And I just wondered if you've got any tips for women who are pitching to any sort of investor.
I think that the best piece of advice I can give any female startup founder pitching to any investor is do whatever it takes to not give a shit when you walk into the room. Okay. And what I mean by that is, I gave a talk actually this past spring at MIT to the Graduate Women's Association at MIT on empowerment, power and how to find it in places you didn't expect. One of the things I talked about was the power of not caring. The power of not caring in a good way in dating, in life, and in business.
Yes.
So what I mean by what I've just said is that the single most paralyzing dynamic in business is fear. And too many women, when they walk into pitch to a VC, when they get up in public and speak to a large audience, particularly of, of techies and therefore male-dominated, is they feel fear. They feel nervousness, they feel insecurity, and that has a very dampening effect on their ability to be compelling and articulate and powerful in public. So when I say the most important thing is that you don't give a shit what anybody thinks, get yourself into a mindset where you don't really care what your audience thinks. And what that means is always give yourself options. If you're pitching to VCs, have lined up so many meetings that you go, well, if they don't like me and this one doesn't go well, I don't care because I've got all these others lined up, and so I won't go, oh my God, so much hangs on this meeting. Oh my God, everything matters so much. I'm going to be paralyzed with nerves and I can't speak.
Yes.
Because that's what happens otherwise.
Yes.
And equally, when you get up in public, on a stage in front of an audience, don't really care what they think. Go, I'm going to have a good time because I'm talking about my startup, or I'm talking about how I program, or I'm talking about something that I love doing. I'm going to enjoy talking about that, and I really don't care what this audience thinks of that. That's the single best thing you can do to make yourself a good speaker and a good pitcher.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Total pleasure.